All right, Margi, take it away.
Hi, everybody. Jay Baba. Sorry, give me 1 second. I'm just pulling up the email so somebody can read it. So the topic is unworthiness. And this is something that in my life I know comes up a lot. It's, I think it's just a theme that we have as humans that maybe starts from childhood, but then it always carries over into our spiritual life. And I think we tend to attribute it to Baba. And then also sometimes we kind of get, at least I do, I don't want to put anybody else's experience out there, but sometimes the idea of making others making others happy and sacrificing for others can sometimes take on this cloud of, oh, I'm not worthy, so that's why this is happening, or that's why I need to do this, or there's something wrong with me, when we are worthy, but then we'll also never be worthy. I remember I was in Meherwan one time and Devana was talking to me and I said, yeah, I'm just really here just working on this story of unworthiness that I keep telling myself. And she shook me right in the eyes and she said, you will never be worthy. And it like set off a real kind of firework in my head of, oh, me being unworthy is like, it's an attachment of the ego, right? And so I feel like my trip this time is really about dealing with this unworthiness, because I don't have a job. I don't have like an identity that I'm connected to. I'm not like, oh, I'm Margi and I'm this person. It's I'm Margi and I'm unworthy. And that's sort of been the thing that my ego is attaching to. So my whole life I've tried to get to this place of being worthy, but I realized on this trip that being worthy is another facet of the ego. And really where we want to be is, I don't know my worth. It doesn't matter. Like Baba knows my worth. So I sent out a little email that I would love for somebody to read before we dive into this topic. I know Peter had a nice Baba quote that maybe he wants to share, but okay. Does anybody feel like venturing out to read the email, or am I gonna have to make somebody do it? All right. We got Diane.
I don't feel
Peter, can you make me a
feel worthy of reading it, but I will make a stab at it.
Peter, can you make me a co-host so that I can share my screen?
Oh, I have it here.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, perfect. Okay, great. Even better.
And I have the glasses. You know that purple store in Myrtle Beach? I got these glasses there.
Oh, the purpleologist.
Jay Baba Al, I know this is a bit early in the week. Literally, I think, by the way, Margi wrote this right 10 minutes after last session, while she still had internet.
Yes, I did.
But I have very limited internet access and wanted to get it out to you all ASAP. After we ended the last late night chat, this topic came to me so strongly, most likely because it has been such a prevalent theme in my life with Baba. Most of us struggle with unworthiness on some level. At the end of the day, the feeling of unworthiness is attachment to the ego and a sense of self disguised as martyred selfness. Is this something that has played out in your life? Has your own feeling of unworthiness ever gotten in the way of you and Baba? When I was younger, I was never able to connect to Meherwan Jessawalla because of a deep unconscious unworthiness. He was such a beacon of pure light, and I always thought he was so far beyond lowly little me. In hindsight, I can see that my own ego denied me an opportunity to connect with someone who loved our beloved so dearly. Have you ever had a similar experience or feeling? If you did, meet the mandali. Was this something that came up for you? Is unworthiness the thing we hold on to when Baba has taken everything else away, just so we have something we can identify with? How do we balance being humble and knowing we know nothing with also feeling unworthy of his great love? Are we meant to have any sense of worth at all? Or is it just a ploy of Maya to have us cling to something? Perhaps the goal is to get to a place of, I don't know my worth, and only Baba does. This is all just some food for thought to spark all that is inside you. Can't wait to hear your shares. In his love, Margie and Peter.
Thank you, Diane.
I can't believe you're only 24 years old and you have so much insight and wisdom and you suffer from unworthiness. I wish I could fill that heart up in you.
Yeah, I mean, I think, Baba sees us as we really are, but we all have these things that we come into the world with. And for me, that's been the biggest theme of my life. And if you guys are into astrology at all, it's very prevalent in my chart even, but I think we all share it. And so I would love if somebody, perfect, we got Ken. Great, okay. Right out of the gate.
Hey, so just a couple of days after you posted this, you saw the play in India? Were you there for Baba's birthday play, Margie?
Yeah.
Oh, you're breaking up a little. Yeah,
sure.
and there was a scene that really touched me and made me think of you and what you're saying here. And unfortunately now my brain is forgetting some of it, but where he's told the story of a story that Baba told. And he says, well, that's children, how Baba's accepting. And he's then explained that to Baba, we're all like his children. And he's forgiving and infinitely patient. And so, as you were saying, was it Devana that said, we're all unworthy and we're all worthy, at the same time. All that judgment just gets in the way in the end, I think about I forget where it's from exactly, about if you fall 1,000 times, get up 1,001 times, And at my age, I got to say, if you fall 10,000 times, get up 10,001 times. So it's all part of the game of his awakening and removing all those attachments to the idea of self at all, really. That's how I see it. But do you remember that part of the play?
Wait, which part was it?
Maybe someone else remembers more specifically, where he's told a story, and I can't quite remember the story now. It's a well-known, about Baba being so accepting.
In the play this year?
Yeah. Maybe it'll come back to me or someone else will think of it.
Yeah, I'm not sure. But a beautiful share. It's true. It's like this idea that we're worthy or not worthy is just something that our ego is trying to attach onto. Yeah, thanks for sharing.
All right. Josh. Good morning, Josh.
Thanks. Yeah. Well, it's afternoon, but I appreciate
No, good afternoon. I knew it was different than in the US.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really interesting. It reminds me of stuff I've read, because I also, this has been like a big sort of like neurotic thing that I've carried, piece of baggage that I've carried along a lot, like worrying about, oh, I'm unworthy, I'm not good enough, things like that. And it's pity Rainey's not here, because I remember she has a quote that she talks about where she was reading, and she says, the inferiority complex is sort of just like the other side of the coin for the superiority complex, and that this is from Baba, and that they're both kinds of self-focus, or just like another kind of sort of self-focus. And this was something that I felt a little bit more connected with when I was in Meherwan, and I was worrying, oh, am I a good enough Baba lover or not? And then I realized that I wasn't worrying whether other people were good enough Baba lovers or not, So it was a secret little part of me that was just worrying selfishly, and that's not to be like sort of like cruel or demeaning to myself, but just like in a self-centered kind of way, and there are so many other people who are just as worthy of my thoughts and attention, yet they're not getting any because I'm sticking around, just thinking about whether I'm doing good enough. Am I incredible enough? Am I perfect enough? Things like these are the kinds of thoughts that I'd sort of be bouncing around. But yeah, so it's interesting. It's really, really interesting, and I'd love to hear more about how other people have faced down their own so-called unworthiness in their life, because it's always interesting to hear how other people react to things. Yeah, it does remind me that again, it's I am thinking, oh, I'm so unworthy. I guess there's some unconscious ideal of worthiness, some perfect thing that is just always forever out of reach, that, it's still comparative. I'm not looking at myself, beyond duality. It's always in this duality of one thing's good, the other thing's bad, and comparing things. But yeah, so very interested. So yeah, please, anyone, talk about ways that you've, done this. Otherwise, I can just keep on going on forever talking about mine. But yeah, I'd love to hear some other people.
Beautiful, Josh. Thank you.
All right, Tony. Good evening, Tony. Tony, you're on mute. You want to click the.
Got it. First thing, Margi, there were the minute I read that note, there were all these things I wanted to send you, and I was going to email you, and I didn't, and it just never happened. But I'll talk about them. But first thing, though, I want to say how I love these chats. I kind of miss that Jeff is not doing these so much anymore, because they're risky, they're dangerous. You go into it knowing that people are being vulnerable. Thank you for sharing what you did, to be vulnerable enough and transparent enough. And I do my best to do the same. And we learn from each other. And it has always been my favorite type of meeting, with or without, in or out of Baba groups, because we learn from each other more than we ever learned from the books. So the two things that came to mind were Baba's stories. I could share my own stuff, but I feel like I want to put these out there first. We just saw the movie Cyrano with Peter Dinklage. And if you know the story of Cyrano de Bergerac, it was my favorite as a kid, because I was smart and clever and everything else, but I was short, and everybody was shorter than other people in the class. And Cyrano in the original is brilliant in everything, but he has a very long nose that's the subject of mockery, and he feels completely unworthy. In this new version, Peter Dinklage, being a dwarf, they made it about his height, and he's in love with Roxanne, the most beautiful woman, and she's secretly in love with him, but he can't conceive that it would be anything but a burden and a distress for her. And he goes through the whole play. It's a wonderful, wonderful, moving story, by the way, moving movie, excellent music, but unable to come out of his own, it's an inverted form of pride. And unworthiness is always an inverted form of pride. You're protecting something, Anyway, I recommend it highly. It matched this subject. But there were two Baba stories that immediately came to mind. One was about Krishna's disciple Narad, who was like his Erich. And after decades and decades with Krishna, he felt like so worthless. He felt like, all these years with you, and I haven't changed. I'm no different. I'm useless to you. I have no value, no worth. And Krishna says, no, you have no idea. I'll prove to you your worth. And he said, tomorrow, go to this forest and go to this particular area and just stand there, and you will get a clear sign. And he gets there and there's nothing around. And he happens to look down and there is a big lump of, to be blunt, shit. And he's just staring at this lump of shit. Is this what it is? This is my worth? Yes, Krishna's got a sense of humor. And then he sees this little worm come out of the pile of shit, look at him, Narad, and die. Oh my God. I guess Krishna has made it clear, what my worth is. And he goes back and he's still despondent. And Krishna says, what's the matter? Well, it's the same thing. I told you. But didn't you get a sign when I sent you there? He's like, yeah, I saw a lump of shit and a worm that died. No. You didn't understand. He said, go to this other spot near there. And there's a tree near there. And you just keep your eye on this tree. And he goes there and he sees this beautiful, beautiful bird that was singing the most gorgeous song. And he's just so entranced by it. And the bird looks at him directly in the eye. I've had this happen. The bird looked at him directly in the eye and fell down off the branch dead. And he said, see, again, I'm so unworthy that these creatures only need to look at me and they die. And Krishna's, no, you're not getting it. Well, you will. And the point comes where the head of a nearby town, the king, has just had a daughter, a son or a daughter, a baby, and asks Krishna's presence to bless this baby. And as sometimes happened with Baba, Krishna sent his disciple to represent him. He sent Narad. And he gets there and he is intentionally ignoring looking at this baby because he's really afraid of what's going to happen if he looks at the baby. And so he's talking to the king, the queen, he's looking at, but he never looks down. And finally, the baby from the cradle says, Narad, why won't you look at me? When I was a worm and you looked at me, I was freed from that and I became a bird. When I was a bird and you looked at me, I became free of that and I took birth now as a human. If you look at me again, I will be liberated and free from this all and one with God. And so he got it. He went back to Krishna. He said, okay, I've got that. The other story is of Ayaz, another one with the king. Ayaz was lower class. He was not nobility. He was a servant in the palace. And the king was perfect master. I forget if it was Janak but whatever. It was a perfect master. And Ayaz was his favorite among all the courtiers and everyone else. Ayaz was his favorite. And people were jealous of him because of that. And one day, there was this beautiful, beautiful gem ring that the king had. And the king called it out, said, put it on the table. And he asked his chief minister to take a mallet and smash it to pieces. And the minister said, no, I can't do that, Krishna. Why would you want me to? He asked the next minister, and he goes down the line. None of them will do it, and they're trying to talk Krishna out of it. He calls Ayaz, he asks him to smash the stone, and he steps right up and he smashes it. And the king is so pleased. And another facet of this story, and I don't remember if it's two separate stories, when they first brought the ring out, the king said, what is it worth? And all of the ministers were praising it. Its value was a priceless gem. And Baba asked, the king asked Ayaz, what's the value of this ring? And he said, sire, this ring here on this table is absolutely worthless. But the moment that ring is on your finger, it is inestimable beyond any price. And Kenmore had told both of these stories that I heard it from. And he said, so when you are holding on to Baba, your worth is beyond anything you can imagine. But on just in and of yourself on the table, not so much. All right, I think there was one other thing I wanted to be. No, I'll save the personal thing for later. But I did wanted to say in my chart, there's Saturn, there's Neptune, there's Pisces, there's Virgo. I've got so much that propagates feelings of worthlessness. And maybe I'll come back later with something more personal. Jai Baba.
Thank you, Tony. I love those stories so much. I actually I don't want to talk too much because I prefer when you guys talk and share, but I had an experience that sort of cleared this. I mean, of course, there's always more, but felt like it was like something I'd been missing my whole life. And it was really along the same lines. So I was at, I don't know if you guys know Adrienne Shamzad, but she's one of the most beautiful singers. Just when she sings, there's not a dry eye in the room, and it's so devotional and gorgeous. And so I was having these feelings of just like, I even called Jeff and I was like, I just feel wretched. Like, I don't even feel like I can go into the samadhi. And so I was at this concert of hers, and Baba kind of flashed this whole inner scene to me that cleared up this feeling of understanding of this unworthiness I've been feeling my whole life. And so what I've always told Baba is I want to be dust at your feet. And I never realized how destructive to myself that was, because I didn't understand what that meant. And so to me, dust at his feet just meant like, oh, you're just nothing, in a very negative kind of, like, you're just nothing. You're just shit kind of thing. And so I'm sitting in the audience and I'm watching Adrienne sing, and I mean, her voice is just so incredible. And all of a sudden I see her as like the size of an ant at Baba's feet. And Baba is like, 100 feet tall. And I was like, wow, she's singing at his feet. And then my mind was like, but dust at his feet can't sing that beautifully. And all of a sudden it was like this flash came to me of where Baba was standing, all this dust around him, and Adrienne was kind of like this big, turned to diamonds. And I understood where this thing had come from. It was like, I had decided that if you were going to be dust at the avatar's feet, that was nothing. That was just like, you're nothing. Of course, being nothing is great, but like in a negative way of nothing. And suddenly I understood that the dust at his feet, because he's the avatar, because he is God in human form, is the equivalent to being a diamond. Being dust at his feet is no small thing. It's not this worthless thing. The dust at his feet is so precious that it's like being a diamond. And then I saw everybody who's in the audience and like at his feet, and how he was so in admiration of these diamonds that he was walking on. It was such a beautiful, but that's very similar to the stories you just shared. Yeah. I think Peter, did you have, you had some Baba quote that you liked or something like that, right?
Yeah. I don't know, like, to me personally, this ties into it. I mean, like with unworthiness, like I feel unworthy a lot, but this is a good reminder. Be mentally free and happy. As is the cause, so is the effect. The cause may be big and important, or small and insignificant, but the result will definitely be according to the cause. The woes of this world are imaginary and are the self-created result of our own ignorance. Having no cause, they are therefore unjustifiable. If there is no reason or cause, then it naturally follows that the result is unreal, insustainable, and meaningless. So why worry about the happiness or misery of this world, which has no cause behind it except imagination? Just go on observing things as a passive spectator as they go on around you, keeping the mind free and happy. As Hafez says, both the happiness and sorrows of this world will pass away, so it is better to always remain cheerful. And that was given by Baba in October of 1922. All right, Josh, back to you.
Yeah, what's very interesting is I just remember this quote, and it's sort of like a really unusual one that you wouldn't have expected Baba to give, but it just shows how, like, the more Baba quotes you go digging through, the more he just says everything and anything under the sun. It's all like, anything. But yeah, I think it was it was definitely these visual artists, but I think he would also say this quote to actors and writers and things. But they'd come to him and they'd be like, "Oh, Barbara, I feel like I'm not a good artist," and he'd give them this trick, right? He'd say, "Okay, well, when you go back to do your art, I want you to imagine yourself as the best artist in the world," and that by conceiving yourself as the best artist in the world, you just give yourself confidence. And most of the time, what hinders people is their lack of confidence to do things. So you can just go through and you can actually make art. And he'd go on to sort of say that it wasn't that, I mean, that it wasn't like egoic to do that. I mean, obviously it was a little bit, but it was like that it was egoic for a good purpose to create art. And which is where one of the more unusual things that he said, that to try and to actually consider yourself the best in the world at something, like, and I use that a lot with my art and writing and stuff like that. And it's quite difficult to do, but sometimes when I try and embody it, then it becomes very fun. But yeah, no, so it's very interesting that, yeah, you can counter unworthiness by considering yourself the best at something, literally from Barber, what he said at times. Also, there was this great quote from this really awesome kids TV show that I grew up on, ironically called Avatar: The Last Airbender. I think that it was quite spiritual in parts, but anyway, one of the characters said, what was it? I think it was, the solution to shame is true humility. And I try and remember that when I'm feeling sort of unworthy or ashamed of myself or something. That the solution is to try and consider myself as I am and accept myself where I am without secret desires to be greater than I am in this moment. But yeah, no, just more sparks and things that I was thinking about with unworthiness. But I'll pass the torch on now to somebody else.
All right, Diane and Terry, let's pass the torch on to you.
It's interesting listening to everyone, and I think that maybe, I mean, I've recently gone through some stuff of mine that was old, old writing and poetry and letters and things. And I don't know that I felt unworthy or worthy. I don't know that I felt either. But as an adult, I always, especially since I've been with Baba, I feel if I do my best, that's it. I don't have to be the best in the world. I just have to be my personal best. And some days that personal best isn't as good as other days, because as I age, I don't feel as energetic some days. I mean, life is really different. And so you do the best that you can with what you have. It's like, I don't know. I never really think about whether I'm doing my best because I'm doing it. I don't know if that makes any sense. And Peter, what you read, I read to Artie tonight. I read at Artie tonight.
Oh, wow. Power of thought.
What was it again? I've completely forgotten it.
The quote?
It was about happiness.
And misery and happiness will pass, so you might as well just be happy. What can you do?
Yeah. No, it's true. May your heart be torn to bits, but a smile be upon your lips. And it really, I think Jeff has talked about this in some of his. There is that like toxic positivity and that toxic surrender of, that complete denial of your own inner world, where you're just like, I surrender and I'm happy all the time. And that's not reality, but it's also, even though on the inside with Baba, you're going through so much suffering and so much internal turmoil, it's the presentation of joy in the outward expression. And I think that that was something that was so hard for me for so long. So I just thought I was supposed to be happy all the time on the inside. But as I've gotten older, it's like, I think Bob has sort of unveiled to me that it's not about being happy all the time on the inside. It's about having that cheerful exterior, because at the end of the day, you're bringing others to him. And if somebody is like, sort of a dead cloud in the room, you feel it. So no one's going to be like, be interested in learning about you and be drawn to you to share his name or to share his quote or something like that. And when you do that, it changes. I think these are Jeff's words. It changes the coloring. If you are, let's say you're like, oh, I have to be happy because people are going to judge me if I'm not happy. Then it's like this really sort of negative responsibility, like, oh, I don't want to have to do this for other people. But if, you're internally suffering and then you say, okay, Baba, for you, I want to appear happy and cheerful to the best of my ability. Then it's like it's a lightness. What I find. Yeah, of course, on the side, I feel just wretched. I remember Jeff said to me one time, I was talking to him about the same thing, how it's like, I just feel wretched all the time. Like I'm presenting myself and people are thinking, oh, she's so happy. And on the inside, I'm like, I'm not happy. And Jeff, he said the first 20 years of Baba for me was like shards of broken glass passing through. And I mean, that's the life that we live with Baba, because it's our own undoing, but you have to keep that smile upon your lips. Because that's like our way to thank Baba for all the work that he's doing to us. I just heard this 2 stories, but when I was talking to somebody about Padre, and apparently, Padre was the one who had to write the weather report for Baba at Marathon. And so one day Padre was feeling super spunky and fiery. And so he wrote like this really beautiful poem about he was like, the sun shines for you, the wind is, taking your name. So, just this really elaborate sort of love-filled poem. And Baba writes back, absolute destruction of Padre. He was like, I will break the pillar of your spine. I will destroy you. I will grind you into dust. You are nothing. You are the most worthless person, just this, like, just destroying Padre. And Padre reads it and he just goes around skipping and jumping around and he's like beaming and he's so happy because he was like, I mean, that's what he wanted. He wanted Baba to destroy him. Baba said he's going to destroy me. Like, how could I not be excited about that?
Why is that?
What'd you say?
Why is that good news?
He's destroying the ego.
He's destroying the ego.
Yeah, destroying the ego. But it was like, I mean, obviously Padre was a character.
So I read, I was also saying that I bought this book, The Real Treasure by Rustam Faluhat. And he said, yeah, and he said that when asked what did he learn or get by working with the mandali, because he did it for 11 years, he would quote the mandali and say, work is only an excuse that Baba uses to work upon your ego. That is the real work. And that this book brings out stories of how the mandali would impart spiritual lessons to resident workers through day-to-day work and ordinary situations. And it sounds like it's still happening with the stories of the mandali that get handed down to you. Do you hand to us?
Yeah. No, it definitely, it's all Baba's game that he uses to get the things done he needs to get done. We all think, oh, it's life and it's creation and all this. And it's really just this perfectly orchestrated joke that Baba has planned out for us to realize him. Okay. Who we got next?
Tony, you have your hand up. Or actually, Marion, you haven't spoken yet. Marion, let's go to you and then Tony.
Hi. Thank you for this opportunity, because for me, it's a sharing. Everybody is personal experience.
Oh, Marion, you just got muted somehow.
push the button. For me, about being worthless, I thought, well, what else is new? You know, I have that every day. It's not a surprise. It's part of me. I've been given the gift of this life of getting grounded in the territory I'm in. Now, the territory is not the trip, because if I've got a map, if I know if I'm going from New York City out to Nebraska, it's good to have a map of the territory and not just get in a car and somebody say, oh, we'll drive around and you'll eventually find Nebraska. I could be up in Maine or Florida or any place. But when I'm on the trip, I may have a rock slide or there may be a flood or whatever. But I feel that that's like something in this life that I'm very, very grateful for, because I've lost everything. And when I say that, I mean that. I just marriages, children grow up, grandchildren grow up. It's like all of my expectations have been dashed. And that's what I'm here for in this life, is to release all expectations of those I am most deeply karmically connected to. And that I had the experience with my parents of this life. They're long gone. I'm in my 80s. I'm not staying here forever. And this has been a lot what my journey is. And so it really has, when I feel that worthlessness, like I lost everything in this life. Then 2071, I had 3 near-death experiences. And I felt like, well, that's my rehearsal for leaving. And it's also a rehearsal for helping my children, for letting me go, because it would be such a shock when I leave here. So I have, so that's one thing that I wanted to share, is that, and we all have our gifts here. We all have, everybody has voiced from their particular personal gifts that you've been given in this life. But I carry in my wallet. So another thing is practicing the power of the word. The vibration of words are so powerful. So in my wallet, I carry this statement: whatever follows I am, and I put I am in quotes, whatever follows I am will come looking for you. So if I say, I am worthless, well, it's going to come looking for me and tugging at my shirt and pulling me back and piling more on me. However, I catch that and I change it to, I feel worthless. So when I'm saying, I am worthless, no, I feel worthless, because feelings can flow through the energy field. They can flow. I am just is like, ugh, I am worthless. But I feel there's that promise of, I don't know how it will be, but it's a level of trust, I guess, and faith in that I will never lose Baba. I may feel I've lost Baba, or Baba's not around, but I know I will never. So I have that knowing, and that's particular for me. I think it's probably for everybody here. So in going through that, I expect some feeling. By expectations, I don't mean pulling on myself, but in the world of duality, I've learned that there are 2 sides of the coin, and somebody was mentioning that here tonight. There's the 2 sides of the coin, happiness and unhappiness. Baba has this in the discourses, pain and pleasure. If it's pain or pleasure, happiness or unhappiness, I'm flopping back and forth between those 2 opposites. But if I'm holding both equally, which Baba says, and all teachers say this, I'm centered. If I'm flipping back and forth, I'm unhappy, I try to be happy, and I'm happy, and all the pain pulls me back. I am not centered. But when I'm holding both equally, I'm centered. And then the closer they come together like this, pain and pleasure, that's the entree to the unitive state of the oneness with all. So I've found that having learned a lot about energy, because that's the shift we're shifting into in the new humanity, is having our mental and our subtle and physical bodies all aligned and flowing, where there's no clogging. So I find that my day is such a journey, and I woke up a day this last week feeling miserable. So I just said, Baba, I'm feeling miserable. My whole life has just been one of misery. And somehow I knew intuitively not to process that, not try to get rid of it, but be with Baba on that feeling of my whole life has been just filled with just misery. And I didn't process it because I'm a good processor. I just let it be and just embodied it. And I didn't know where it was going to go. And the next day kind of shifted. It lightened up and things lightened up. And I knew it was right for me to go through a day of just misery. So that's about all I can share in that. One thing, there's this man, Matt Kahn, he's a really good teacher. And he has, now there's coming up, a lot of sciences are coming up with putting the hand at the heart chakra. Because Baba said, we're here to balance head and heart leading the way. So scientists are now discovering the heart's the new brain. And they even found some brain-like cells in the heart, but they're heart cells, but they look like the brain. And so he gave this one teacher, Matt Kahn, he gave something to do just to walking around, put my hand on my heart and say, I am worthy of giving and receiving pleasure. I'm worthy of giving and receiving pleasure. I'm worthy. So if I catch myself with my mind going too fast, I'm saying Baba's name all around my apartment, and then it'll come to me. I'm worthy of giving and receiving pleasure. I'm worthy of giving and receiving pleasure. And it just shifts. Now I've read in certain newspapers I get and all, now it's coming up, more and more people are having their business, their transformational businesses around the hand on the heart. So anyway, I'll end with that. I'm grateful for the tools because life is a mess every day and it is just totally beautiful every day, depending if I'm looking through eyes of spirit or human. Thank
That's
you.
great, Marian. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you sharing. All right. Looks like Tony, did you have your hand up?
Yes. That first share, it's kind of like I felt this is important. I have to get it out, and I did, and I shared the stories, and they're good stories. But I was wanting to race through it in a way because, like I say, these chats, I really value the degree to the way you have to put yourself on the line to really get anything out of them. And so I don't have any notes for this part. Just to say what's going on now, Baba has been challenging me in a wonderful way, in the sense that I've asked for it. But I'm finally getting a handle between remembering all I've learned with Baba from various people in my experience, and also this Course in Miracles and the book The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer, which is about being a witness. And oh, I got to get to the gallery. Okay. And I'm saying, you know, the idea of witnessing the ego, witnessing what's going on, the turmoil, the joy, I remember Ken Moore, shortly before he died, one day said, you must become a witness to the pranks of the mind. You must become a witness to the pranks of Maya, synonymous. And, you know, instead I've been listening to the pranks of the mind. I'll alternate between feeling Baba's love. Now Baba said, accelerating feelings helps bring the balance of the mind and heart. But he talks about the mind, and I think Baba is sometimes talking about the divine mind, but he actually uses the phrase the ego mind. And the ego mind is horrible. There's nothing good about it. It's based, my understanding now from all of this stuff, it's based on fear. It's based on the anti-real thought that we are all separate, living in a world of separation and isolation, and powerless, and as a result, endangered by everything. And it's not necessarily conscious with people, but the ego tries to control life to make it as safe as possible, and or hoard money to be as safe as possible, or whatever the strategy is. In my case, I just last summer published my Big Baba story, self-published it on Amazon. I had written it in 2000. It was complete and ready to go in 2000. But that voice was saying, who are you to tell a story like this? And what kind of writer are you anyway? No one's going to compare you to a good writer, even though I had a dream where Baba said I would be a great writer, but that's enough. Still, that voice doesn't care. It's, and the fear thing, I just kind of put it together. It was a fleeting thought over the years. that if this story goes out, it will so affect the world that people will know Baba is God, and fundamentalist Christians will know Baba is God, and they will become furious and want to kill me. This is that voice, that ego voice. And there's no, I'm finding there's no way to deal with this except ask Baba's help, to be a witness, to witness it and not sink into it, not buy into, not become afraid. The other thing that comes to mind is it gets in the way of love. That's the big thing. It gets in the way of love, and Baba is about love. Period. Really, I'm beginning to feel, and it reminded me, partly watching this movie tonight, of this first girlfriend that I'd mentioned, and it was extraordinary. It was heaven sent. It was all, but then that mind started to kick in. And like, so I was 18 and she was 22, and I was going, that is such a big difference in age. And she had had a baby and put it up for adoption. And it was like, she's got so much more experience. She's never going to be able to relate to me, or I'm not going to, because even though we had perfect harmony. And I basically, that voice, and because I didn't take it seriously, got in and blew everything up. The voice of the ego, which is expresses in the feeling of unworthiness, of anger when your wish is thwarted, what you wanted things to happen, it gets in the way of love. And I mean the love within your own heart that affects every moment of your life then. So I don't know really what I'm saying, if there's no direction to it, but I just wanted to share something real on this. Thank you.
Really beautiful, Tony. I like what you're sharing too, because I mean, you said it gets in the way of you and Baba. I put that part about Meherwan Jessawalla in the email because I can remember Bao always was just like a very weird guy to me. I always thought he was doing Bob's work, but he was just a weird guy. I didn't ever really connect with him. So I didn't have that experience with Bao. It was just kind of like, okay, I'm here and I know that I'm getting some benefit from this because he's Baba's, but I don't really understand it. But I can distinctly remember going to Meherzad as a teenager and looking at Meherwan just sitting by himself and just like being a light and thinking, I can't talk to him. And I didn't realize at that age that that's what it was. But as I got older, I realized it was this deep unworthiness. Like he was with the God man. Who am I to bring my lowly, whatever to him and like it got in the way of me and Baba because I could have shared that experience with Meherwan. And so, I mean, I think, well, Tony, you might be the only one on here who met the mandali. I guess Ken, if he's still here, but
What's that?
Who met the mandali?
Oh, wow.
And
Oh my God.
I know it's changed, but I'm just curious if any of you guys have experiences where something like that has gotten in the way of you and Baba, where you have like assumed your unworthiness over like an opportunity that Baba is presenting to you to feel his love, to be with him, and kind of sabotaged it. And maybe nobody has that experience. I had that experience many times in my life, but maybe no one else does. And then if anybody would be willing to share that. I saw Peter shake his head yes. Maybe not. No, nobody. That's all right. Go ahead, Tony.
I just want to say it feels like an everyday occurrence, not specifically the feeling of unworthiness, because I will tend to go in the other direction and to get really bravado about it. But inside, I'm like this small in my own mind. And that's all ego stuff. It means you're not remembering that Baba is your real self. I mean, that's the real thing, that Baba is the self of all selves. He is your being. He's your very being. And the other stuff is just the role. It's just the cartoon. It's just, and we can enjoy it, but the thing specifically Baba has been working on me with is this ego wanting to control, which reinforces that the world's a dangerous, fearful place, and we're all separate and isolated. And so I've been put into situations a few times with Baba's birthday celebration, with something that happened today. I don't even remember what it was, but where I'm feeling powerless over my own life. And if I'm powerless over my own life, then I can't protect myself from the people and situations and things that I don't want in my life. And I'm seeing that it's all a big, Ken will use the word that Baba used, it's a big tamasha. It's like this big, it's an Indian word, it's like a big play, a big pageant. And none of it's real. It's impressive, but none of it's real. And it's easy to say, but I think without Baba's help, it's probably impossible to extricate yourself. And with Baba's help, I find it challenging to remember, oh, I asked for this, Baba is giving me this. He's helping me. Where I asked him to help me, he's helping me. And the part of me that wants to be in control is angry as hell. Because anger is the fume of an irritated mind functioning under the thwarting of desire. That's the definition close enough in the discourses. And I had to do that today. I had to take about half an hour to get past the anger I was feeling, acknowledge the grace that was coming my way, that I would rather do what Baba wants me to do, which has love and truth and wisdom in it, than this thing that I wanted to do. It's a lot of work.
Yeah, it is. It's a constant work. And it's like, if we don't have the overworthiness, then we have the unworthiness. And either way, I kind of, when I go through these scenarios where the mind is kind of sort of torturing me, I always think, okay, I'm on the right track, because this is a new thing that my ego is trying to hold on to. Like, you're shedding layers of other stuff. And if this is what the ego is holding to, then I trust that Bob is going to dissolve it. I don't need to necessarily beat myself up about the fact that this is what it's holding on to, but understand that that's great. That the ego is so desperate to hold on to something that it's holding on to unworthiness. Now I don't want to get attached to that and be like, oh, that's how I know that I'm on the right track, but it's not all bad. Okay, looks like we've got
Marion.
Hi, I'll make this quick, because even though you said, you posed the question, Margi, about, I don't know, losing contact or something, but there you said, I felt your faith came through. Your faith came through in just what you absolutely said. And I feel it's there all the time. And certainly I lose it all the time. If I relied on feeling, Baba's presence all the time, I'd just be in disappointment a lot. But I guess it's that knowing that can never be taken away from me, ever, ever, ever. And, there's that saying about believing in God is not, much, but knowing, you have to know God. And so since I've had enough of that, knowing that, then I can take my complaints to Baba, because he said, I will not fulfill any of your wants, but I will fulfill every real need. But you have to dig for them. You have to look for them. It's not so easy just to come up with your real needs. So I've done a lot of digging. And so I know when I feel that, there's days that I just feel like I'm just this little human Marion that is so overloaded with so much to do to take care of myself and all I have to do in life. And it just is too much. And I know, and then what'll pop in, like even now I heard it, that's a belief. And I want to argue back and say, what do you mean it's a belief? It's happening every day, so I don't know. So this is why I don't teach others. I just need people, all of you, to share with and have empathy with, because I just am so grateful. No matter how miserable I am, I know that Bob is my best friend. He said, I'm the only friend who will never let you down. So I have on my to-do list every day 3 formal complaint sessions. I may be complaining up in my mind sometimes, but I have 3 formal ones because I'm trained in core energetics. And I can say, and look at Baba's picture and say, I am triggered by whatever it is, my life circumstances or a person or whatever, because nobody else causes my misery. And then I say, I'm going to release this out of my energy field so I may be filled with your light, love, and life. And then I get out my hitting bat because I'm a very emotional person. Everybody doesn't need to do what I do because we're all different personality types. But I need to get out my emotions because I learned they do not transform unless expressed, but expressed in a healthy way, not dumped on anybody and not kept in my body to make me sick. So we're heading toward knowing what energy, because in the new humanity, there's not going to be any stuck energy. So I need to be in my energy field and use my physical body to release that. So then I hit on a pillow and I yell and scream and I curse everybody out. But I'm not creating more sanskaras because I've turned it over to Baba as my witness. And my intention has been stated clearly that I intend to release this, what is triggered, so that I may be filled with your light, love, and life. So I'm not creating more sanskaras. So I have to do that formally in my 3 times a day. There's a lot more that comes up, but I found having a boundary around it is really helpful because I'm more accepting and I feel Baba is just there, and it's not an emotion, it's a knowing. So I just wanted to share that because I'm really promoting about, finding out what's in the energy field and getting that moving.
That's so beautiful. Thank you, Mary.
Yeah.
All right, looks like we got Tony.
Just following on what Marion was saying, one of the things that I've been getting lately, where Baba says, don't worry about your thoughts. They'll come and they'll go, just don't put them into action. And I came to Baba at 17. So to me, that was always about sex. It was like, don't put the thought into action. But what I have gotten at this point, it has a lot to do with this being a witness. He said, if you don't invest, in effect, I think he's saying, if you don't invest in the thoughts, if you don't grapple with the thoughts, which gives them a reality, if you just watch them, let them come and let them go, those sanskaras are spent. Those impressions that gave rise to the feelings of unworthiness or whatever it is, they get spent because you're not feeding it with your thoughts, with your current thoughts, with your emotions. And that's how it's like, this is what Baba was asking. It's like 50 years I'm thinking, this is what. All right, so that just wanted to share that. And one other thing that came to mind, talking about happiness, that Ken Moore had shared, he was with Baba and Baba asked him, so Harry, are you happy? And he said, Baba, how in the hell can anyone be happy in this world the way it is? There's the and there's this and that. The best one can hope for is to be unmiserable. And so Baba says, so Harry, how are you right now? He said, Baba, I'm very unmiserable.
Oh, that's great. Oh, I love that. Was that it, Tony, or do you have more?
Oh, if I look, I always have more, but that was it.
Does anyone else have anything that kind of comes to mind about this topic? I feel like I'm talking a lot tonight and I apologize. This has been such a theme of my trip. And so Baba has sort of amped up this, oh, okay.
Are you calling on me? You froze.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. Connection.
I think that all my therapists over my entire lifetime will attest that when you're injured as a child because of people putting things on you, they're doing the best they can, but it can really disempower a human being. So you can look at someone like you, Margie, and like you said, externally, people you look wonderful, you look like you're having a blast, but inside you're cringing. You're having these doubts with yourself. And there's a lot of dewiring or rewiring that we have to do from what was taken internally when we were kids and we didn't know any better. And these were people who we thought loved us, so we took on their voices and to get their voices out. And as much therapy as I've ever done, it has not even come close to the closeness I have with Baba when I remember that Baba knows my worth, and that it's my ego and or my agenda that gets in the way. And these sessions are incredible to talk about. And I'm a big fan of what Jeff is doing about effort and grace. I know Tony is not, but it's an opportunity for other people being pleased and being able to get to Baba that way. But I think any avenue that we can take to bring Baba in internally, I think, at least for me, I'll speak only from the I, has been life-changing. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba, thank you, Diane. I think, I've done my own share of therapy, and I think probably most people have at some point. But there is a place where you come to where you have the tools, like Marianne said, but it's in Baba's hands. And he takes responsibility for that journey. And yeah, you keep doing the work, you keep doing the things that you need to do your best. But at the end of the day, Baba's the ultimate therapist, and he knows better than any therapist you're ever going to work with what you need. And I've noticed that with Baba people, and myself especially, that who have gone through that process of unwinding a childhood, or unwinding those sort of patterns that are created, that there's a point where Baba almost like breaks that relationship with that therapist, because they're just playing a role for him, and ultimately it's us and Baba. But yeah, no, thank you for sharing. Really beautifully said. So if no one has anything else that they want to share tonight, I just have two things that I want to close out with, if that's okay. And then I won't talk as much next week, but so
just a reminder, next week we have Elisa and Pamela on as special guests.
Yeah, thank you, Peter, for correcting my statement.
You're welcome.
Or corroborating my statement. So this whole unworthiness is, it's been a theme of my life, but I feel like this India trip, Baba, is kind of like, okay, this is enough, no more, like this has to end. And so I had this dream that I was in this dream, Mara came to me and she was sitting on the edge of my bed. And it was just like, how a mother would kind of stroke somebody's hair. So I'm laying on the bed and I'm like trying to kind of fall asleep in this dream, and Mara is stroking my hair, and it's so sweet, and she's looking at me so lovingly. And then I start having the most terrible thoughts, like thoughts that you would never want to have in the presence of the purest soul in the universe. And in this dream, I'm like turning my head away and I'm trying to push Mara away, because I was so like disgusted with myself that I was having these dreams, these thoughts. When Mara's like stroking my hair and trying to help me fall asleep. And in the dream, like I understand that Mara knows exactly what I'm thinking. And she takes my head almost like you would hold a little bunny rabbit, and pulls it even closer and puts it on her thighs and just strokes my head until I fall asleep. And so I told Raphael Giardinio this dream, and he goes, "You're giving yourself too much credit, Margi. Would you be ashamed to bring your dirty hands to a bar of soap?" And when he said that, I was like, that's what we think. We think that we have this ability, like we are so bad and dirty and whatever and messed up, that we're gonna discolor Baba or something like that. And it's true. Do you ever go to a bar of soap and say, oh, my hands are too dirty for this bar of soap? No, that's what gets you clean. And so I wrote this poem, kind of came to me really early in my trip. And so I just wanted to share it with you guys. Like I said, this wretchedness was really a theme. And it was so much so that I was sitting outside this Mahdi and I couldn't even go in because I was like, who am I to walk across this threshold and bow my head at his feet? Like, why do I think I can do that? So I'm gonna read it to you guys, and I hope you enjoy it. Okay, it's called My Wretched Self. Oh, beloved, what can I offer you besides my wretched self? We come from far and wide, offering you things in hopes of earning your grace. We come and lay our head at your feet in hopes you will bestow your gifts upon us. We give you our strengths and weaknesses because that is what you say to do. But beloved, I have nothing. I show up to you empty-handed. All I could do is lie on the marble floor and weep in hopes you will accept me as I am. As I approach your samadhi, I become aware of the nothingness I truly am. I become so aware that I dare not cross your threshold. What do I have to offer you besides my wretched self? I have nothing. Even this very body that would prostrate in front of you was given to me by you. I feel like an apparition in desperate search of anything tangible. I take a seat outside your throne and just observe. I watch your lovers come to you and bow their heads. It is as if I can hear the conversations they have with you. Oh, Baba, I surrender this to you. I give you my anger, happiness, and love. Thank you for everything, they say. I sit outside the doorway and watch these exchanges. As I sit here, I sink more and more into nothingness. All I could think is, what else do I have to offer you besides my wretched self? I'm so confused, beloved. I watch all of your lovers offer these things to you, but how can this be so? I think to myself, maybe I can bring you some of those things, just to have something to lay at your feet. Just as that thought dances through my mind, I then remember I have nothing but my wretched self. My sadness is yours. My joy is yours too. How can I offer anything to the one that bestows everything? Suddenly, a naked unworthiness washes over me. It is as if I become aware that I truly have nothing to bring you. I am in the presence of a king wearing nothing but dirt and rags. Dirt and rags, which were only received by your grace. Again, a self-consciousness washes over me, realizing I cannot bring anything to you but my wretched self. I contemplate going inside and laying my head down on the marble to take your darshan. The thought scares me, as who am I to think I know how to bow down to love itself? Who am I to say I know how to pay homage to the divine? I become washed in unworthiness, but cannot seem to leave, although everything that's left in my being wants to run. I have shown up empty-handed to the one that gives all. Oh, how I want to cross that threshold and bow to you, but with what? Bowing down with the body you gave me, as if that means anything at all to you, just seems wrong. I grow more and more aware of my loneliness and embarrassed I have come this far to offer you only my wretched self. After agonizing over what I can bring you, I finally approach your threshold. I stop and copy what I have observed others doing before me. I bow down and touch it as if that would make me any more worthy of the gift I'm about to receive. I play out in my head how I will take your darshan, copying what I have seen before. I think to myself, they seem to know how to love him. Perhaps if I do the same, I will not disgust him entirely. So I enter, feeling the cool marble floor under the feet you have lent me. I fall to my knees. Suddenly, I don't know where to put my head. Who am I? And turn away, leaving the ground. I allow my wretched self to approach you. In this moment, I decide that if I am before the with courage you bless me with, I collapse on your tomb cloth. The unthinkable happens. All other formalities are out of the way. Anger, the ridiculous offerings are out of the way. I lose accepted by you. You give my wretched self a place of refuge. You accept me and suddenly I am no more. I lose all awareness and become lost in you. All thoughts have disappeared. There is no time and space. You smile at me and all else home. You accept the gift I have brought you as if it were a chest of gold. Suddenly I vanish too. All that is left is you, the dissolver of my self. Jade Baba. Well, with that being said, maybe we'll just have a moment of silence, unless anybody has anything else that they want to share. And then we can unmute and close out with a Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai. Okay, if everybody wants to unmute, we'll do it 3 times. Avatar Meher Baba
Ki Jai.
Jai.
Avatar Meher Baba
Avatar
Ki Jai.
Meher Baba Ki
Avatar
Jai.
Meher Baba
Avatar
Ki
Meher
Jai.
Baba Ki
Avatar
Jai.
Meher Baba Ki Jai.